We're here with Ameshia Cross, a former Obama campaign advisor and a Democrat strategist. Ms. Cross, very important question. What do you think the Harris-Walz ticket has to do to gain the support of independents and moderates?
I think that they've got to showcase that they are moving forward in terms of building an economy that works for everyone. They've got to push forward in opening up the economy, but also the housing market. We've seen that there are some policies that were just outlaid a few days ago by the vice president about the ways to address those things. But they've also got to make them feel like America works for them. I think that there are far too many people who believe that the system is just, it's unfortunate, it's broken, and it's beyond reproach. So I think that she's got to really install faith in our democracy again. She's got to make sure that it is inclusive, but also one that speaks to the needs of everyday Americans. Because sometimes I think that there is an idea that all of these processes are not only not working, but people are frustrated with the system. So she's got to go back and she's got to kind of try to break some of that away, but also lean in on their concerns. And as somebody who's a Biden supporter, I do think that when you're talking about things like Bidenomics, when you're talking about things like making sure that our infrastructure is growing, making sure that people get jobs, acknowledging that hundreds of thousands of jobs have been added, you also have to acknowledge that there are a lot of people who are working multiple jobs at once to keep their lights on. There are people who cannot afford to send their kids back to school and buy food for them at the same time. Those are things that can all be true simultaneously. And we can still have an economy that is the envy of the world. Coming out of the pandemic, our economy is stronger than anyone else's. We've built a structure that works, but it doesn't work equally for everybody. And I think that for her, it's leaning in on the concerns of the American public, also showing that she understands them.
The Trump campaign has had months to define itself, but the Harris-Walz ticket has had less than 4 weeks to define itself. Do you think that that will affect the chances of people supporting them when November 5th comes around?
Well, if what we've seen on the ground is any indication, I would probably say no. America is not used to truncated campaigns. Europe is. I think that for someone like Kamala Harris, where she's literally got a little over 2 months to get her campaign going, to actually, create an opportunity for people to acknowledge who she is, what she stands for, that's a very short amount of time. But she's doing the work on the ground. She's got to be in the battleground states, pounding the pavement regularly. Her surrogates as well. She's got to acknowledge, and I think her campaign is, that she is the underdog here. She's got a lot of ground to build in an extremely short amount of time to do so. We know that the average voter takes 5 or 6 touches before they even fully understand what your policy platform happens to be. That's a lot of touches in 2 months. I think that's important that she continues to acknowledge that the polls are really, really tight. They are within the margin of error. They were within the margin of error when Biden was at the top of the ticket as well. But I think she's expanded the map in a way that, unfortunately, President Biden could not do. There are states that are in play now that were not in play a month and a half ago. But that doesn't mean that they're still going to be in play come November. As we know that there's going to be a lot of digital ads. There's going to be also some media ads, some traditional media ads, but she's focusing on digital coming out Labor Day weekend, because that's traditionally when Americans really start getting hyper-focused on the election cycle. So she's doing what she can on the ground, but the momentum has got to be sustained.
So lastly, do you think that the enthusiasm that we're seeing here at the DNC is going to translate down the ballot? Do you think that the representatives, the incumbents that want to be reelected, or even those seats that want to be flipped, will receive this same enthusiasm when it comes November 5th?
Absolutely. One of the great things about this process and the ascension of Kamala Harris to the top of the ticket is that the sizable fundraising she's been able to do in such a short amount of time, we're talking millions of dollars in many cases a day, that is not just for her race. Those are also for down ballot races, because the recognition is there are some tight races that are incumbent upon her to actually rise to the top of the ticket, because there's only so much she can do with her agenda if she doesn't have Congress. That was one of the issues that we saw Biden run into. Honestly, it was one of the issues that Obama ran into halfway through his presidency as well. You can have the greatest goals ever created, and if you cannot get Congress to support them, if you cannot get the people on the right to actually come towards the middle and say, okay, this is what's going to be good for the American public, you're going to be at a loss. So I think that for her, it's also ensuring that they get more seats in the House, ensuring that they flip the House, but also maintaining gains in the Senate. And all of those races are going to be extremely important. What we know every 4 years is that you get more diverse voters that come out in a presidential than you ever do in off-year elections, but you have to make sure that those voters understand what's at stake and that they're also looking at the names that aren't just at the top of the ticket.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Cross.
Thanks for having me.